Welcome to the Women in AV podcast. I am your host, Erica Carroll, and today we are diving into another inspiring woman breaking barriers in the AV industry. This is Gina Sansivero. Hello, Gina.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much for having me. I was so pleased that you asked me to be part of this.
Absolutely. You've been on my list for a while, and I'm so glad that you were available. So I kind of just want to go ahead and dive in, and I want to learn more about you and the stuff that you're doing in AV. So first, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in AV?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like many people, I kind of fell into AV. I had a marketing internship when I was in college, and I was working in a medical components company, and they hired me full time out of school. And I was there for about 6 years and decided I'd love to find the next step in my career. And I loved the company, but it was time to expand my skill set. And so I looked on a career website and looked at a couple of different job postings and found one for an R&D company that was out here on Long Island. And they were looking for a marketing manager for a startup. And they had just come out of an incubator that was associated with a school over here. And so it seemed like a really cool thing, just learning how to market a brand new company that was coming out with some really incredible technologies. So I started there, and the cool technology that they did was really creating a user replaceable light engine for a number of different markets, one of which was the Joint Strike Fighter heads-up display, one of which was for a dental curing light, and one of which is the point of this story, was projector light engines. So rather than throwing out the entire housing, at the time projectors weren't laser. Wow, I'm dating myself.
That's when I came into the industry. They weren't lasers either. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. So at the time they had big housings, and we were developing a technology that would be able to have them replace a component rather than the entire housing. So I started there, and I was at that company for 9 years, working my way from marketing manager to sales and marketing manager, to partner in the company. And then my love of the industry kind of was fueled even more by some of the women that I had met in my journey at that company. And when I was ready to even further expand my skill set, Jan Sandry had reached out to me from FSR, and she said, "Hey, we're looking for somebody, and we would love for you to join our company." And I was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So that started my journey, further kind of embedding me into marketing, and also dipping my toe into business development. And so the greatest thing about working with FSR was that it was aside the people there who are incredible, it was a woman-owned business, and I really enjoyed the dynamic that came with that, and really decided to put a lot of effort and volunteer hours into supporting women within the organization, and then within Avixa, and then beyond that within other organizations that I volunteered with, that are deeply embedded in the audiovisual and IT and now security industries. So after my tenure with FSR, I had this amazing opportunity to move on to AtlasIED, where I am now, taking a 90-year-old company that is, just embedded in the industry, truly just has always been there, right? A rock, a foundational piece of the industry, and injecting a little bit of new into it, injecting modern, refreshing the perception, and kind of uplifting everything that goes along with it. And the great thing about re-energizing this brand for AtlasIED is that I'm getting to work with a ton of really intelligent, really gifted people who are working behind the scenes. So instead of a marketer kind of saying that we're doing a brand refresh and not having a lot of oomph behind it, I have product, I have engineering, I have everything that I need behind me to kind of walk my walk and talk my talk. So it's been a really great journey so far.
That's an incredible journey. And I know that I want to touch on a few of the extracurricular activities as well that you've been able to accomplish in your career as well. But before we get into that, with that journey, what advice would you give to somebody who is just coming into AV?
Find a group of people that you trust, who you can lean on. Everybody is going to need a confidant. Everybody is going to need somebody else's connections. Everybody is going to need support. And being able to find that group of people, to find those individuals who will support you, who will give you good advice, who will commiserate with you and empathize with you, and make you feel like you can do this, because there's challenges in any industry, not just ours. So having that support system behind you, I think, will allow you to find the right path for you and to find the strength to move within the industry in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a great point. And how has mentorship and networking played a role in your career development?
So mentorship has been very important for me, and I've been lucky enough to have a number of mentors, men and women, in my life. The majority of my mentors and my mentorship relationships have been informal, and I think for me that's worked very well. Informal mentorship means that you find somebody who has a complementary skill set, who has a job or a career path that you want to emulate, who has some sort of a charisma or a placement in the industry that you think you can learn from, that is maybe different than yours, and so you want to challenge yourself in a way with that perspective. Those types of individuals for me have been invaluable in helping to expand my own network, but also in creating a sense of, I guess, confidence in myself, in understanding that I'm learning from people who I've identified as people that I maybe want to grow up to be one day, or people who have had challenges and have overcome those challenges that maybe I don't have, but I'd love to learn how they've overcome those challenges, to take in some of that perspective, right? And I think obviously different perspectives, and we've talked about this before, you and I, different perspectives really make you a stronger individual.
Absolutely.
It's not okay to just be stuck in your own little in your own little world, because unfortunately when the storm comes, you're not able to weather that storm just based on your own individual experience. Very often you have to understand different perspectives, different experiences, different cultures, different everything, in order to make the right decisions to get through those battles.
So you've mentioned finding your people and finding your mentors, and I know that you have one of the most robust networks of anybody that I know. And part of it is because you're a social butterfly, which is amazing. for us introverts who'd rather just like watch from afar, which is cool. But I have to step outside of my comfort zone a lot to introduce myself to people and get to know people and stuff like that. So I'd like to ask you, how would somebody go about finding those people, or once they've been recognized, how do you reach out to them?
That is a really great question. And I think that it does depend on your personality, for sure. I can tell you some of the things that I do, and it might be uncomfortable for you, right? So there are a couple of things that I do. I make sure that when I know that somebody I know is bringing somebody new into the industry, I ask for an introduction. right? I
Mm-hmm.
say, I would like an introduction to this person. If she or he need help with anything, I am there for them. And I'd like to offer that to them directly. So again, if it's a new hire, if it's an intern, if it's just somebody that they're bringing to an event that they had just met, I ask for that introduction. The other thing I do is if I'm at an event or a networking evening or whatever, sometimes I will go find the wallflower. Sometimes I will go and I'll look at the edges of the room and see the people who look like they want to engage, but might be having trouble finding that voice. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
stand next to them and I'll say something about the evening. And it can be something as ridiculously dumb as, I really like your shoes, right? Or it can be
Sure.
something like, are you struggling? Do you need an introduction?
Mm-hmm.
But if that person is so incredibly shy that they don't want help, I will back off because I can
Mm-hmm.
be a lot sometimes. Um, but if they do seem to open up for a second, and if they do seem to say, "Yeah, I would really like an introduction," or "Thank you, I like my shoes too,"
Mm-hmm.
um, that's kind of that first step. So looking for people on the perimeter and bringing them into the fold, and then of course, asking for the introduction with newbies and helping them to kind of come in.
I love the way that you flip that script, and maybe that's a good challenge for some of more of our industry veterans to actually do the initiating and seeking out new people to be that welcoming committee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Thank you.
you have written more recently about motivating professional teams. Um, can you share some insights about what drives individuals to excel in the workplace?
Well, it is a very individual drive, right? And it definitely depends on um, what we're driving towards, right? So there's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is that which powers you to move towards a goal from inside, from something that sits within you, a
Mm-hmm.
feeling of doing good. A lot of volunteering is through intrinsic motivation. A lot of social workers, nurses are motivated intrinsically. There's also extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation are things like rewards, acknowledgments, raises, promotions, things that kind of reinforce that you're doing the right thing and will motivate you to continue to do that right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely depends, number one, on the person, and number two, on the circumstances that person finds themselves in. Are you motivating them to volunteer for something, or are you motivating them to do better in their job? So understanding that person's communication style, understanding that person's character, and understanding what motivates them in different situations. So being observant and making sure that you're paying attention enough to that other person to kind of take those cues and use those cues to help motivate, I think are really important as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And to kind of, if you are trying to be observant and you are not getting those cues, to kind of be okay asking for them, to kind of be okay breaking down those walls and saying, I'm trying to figure out how to get you to this place for both of us. So let's have
Mm-hmm.
a discussion about what you think I should help you to do to achieve that, right? What do you need from me? Or what do you need from others? What are the barriers that I can break down for you? And where do you see your motivation coming from in this particular instance? And so, I don't have a problem talking. So having difficult conversations while uncomfortable is actually a really important thing for me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think having those, and difficult does not mean angry or challenging or combative. Difficult just means things that sometimes make you uncomfortable. And talking to people about why they're not hitting goals or why they're not reaching their KPIs, or how to get them there can sometimes be uncomfortable. So I would say that really having that conversation, being observant, and all of the other stuff that I mentioned, and then just having that conversation, open communication does wonders for motivation.
I love that from a leadership perspective. If we were to flip it to the employee who maybe doesn't work the same way as their leader but needs more motivation from them, how would they approach that?
If I were an employee and I felt like I needed more, I was becoming demotivated in my position or within the organization as a whole. First, I would turn inward, and I would say, what are the major things that motivate me? Is it professional development? Sometimes professional development can do wonders. Is it career path? Is it clarity that I'm just feeling like I don't really know what's expected of me? So first I would turn it inward, and then I would make sure that I would have a conversation with my leader or with my manager. And I would say, hey, listen, I'm feeling a little bit demotivated. I'm feeling a little bit kind of status quo. I don't like that feeling. I feel like I can be doing more. What do you need from me in order to put me on a career path? Or how can I find professional development within the organization? Are there any organizations that you belong to and volunteer at that maybe I can volunteer at as well, and start expanding my network and expanding my influence? And that might help to motivate me. But again, it comes down to communication, and it comes down to self-reflection, right? So being very self-aware, what motivates you professionally, what motivates you personally, right? Everybody gets into a rut in all aspects of their life. And so really being self-aware enough to bring it to somebody else's attention is being vulnerable, but it's also being proactive.
Yeah, that's interesting, because you could also inadvertently end up in another mentorship relationship, right? If somebody takes stock in you and they understand your drive and what you want, they might actually take stock in that.
Absolutely. And the whole idea of mentorship is that, and I don't agree with this, it's that the mentor generally helps the mentee get to or through a place in their career. But I truly believe that mentorship is two ways, that the mentor benefits just as much as the mentee in a true mentorship relationship.
I completely agree. A question that I've been asking my guests more recently is, in this spirit of learning and personal development, what have you read, listened to, or learned recently that you think is worth sharing?
Ooh, I read all the time, but I do read for fun a lot. And a book that I just read for fun, it's a novel, is called The Moonflowers. And I thought that it was an interesting book. It was outside of my comfort zone. It was slightly more, I don't know, outside of the norm. I am very much kind of like a historical fiction type of person.
I was about to say,
fantasy.
everyone's normal is different.
Yes, exactly. I'm not into fantasy. I'm not into sci-fi. I'm not into things like that. But this was a very interesting book for me. It was a very difficult read. And it was very much a book that I would recommend to a woman who is very involved in women's organizations, in helping to support women, in helping to create that web, that network for others, and doesn't mind kind of locking arms and moving forward together. It's not fantasy, it's not sci-fi. I didn't mean to intimate that. It was different in that it wasn't always happy. It wasn't always a mindless read, which is sometimes something that I do, a beach read or something like that. And I took a lot away from it, reinforcing that some of the work that, you and I both do can be really hard. It can be emotionally challenging. It can be draining. It can be targeting. Sometimes you feel like you have a little bit of a target on your back. Oh, you're the women's women, right? Like
Right. I have
it's,
felt that.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and that it was interesting reading the book, because even if the author, and I don't know about this author, but even if the author did not go through this directly, she was able to write about it. And so I know I'm not alone, and you're not alone. And so to kind of reflect and say, okay, so there are a lot of us who feel this way. There are a lot of us who feel this way and move forward despite feeling this way. And yeah, it's okay to be exhausted by it, and it's okay to be wounded by it in a way, but you're not alone. So it kind of makes you stronger, even if it's just a book. I don't know. I guess that would be my recommendation, The Moonflowers.
That's awesome. I'm definitely adding it to my list. I'm going on a holiday vacation, so that's something that would be easily consumed during
Yes.
vacation. So awesome. So last couple questions here. Now I have a new tradition on the show where I ask the previous guest to ask a question for the next guest, not knowing who it's going to be.
Okay.
So your question is, what drives you to be a part of this industry, and what would you like to change?
Gosh, I love this industry so much because and it sounds cliche, we all say it, but it feels like a community. And I think that I would not be where I am in my career. I would not be where I am in my volunteering. I would not be where I am with my friends if it wasn't for the community that's built within AV and being open to that community. And I'm a little bit proud of myself for that, just being open to accepting that community. So I think, I think that would be why I'm still kind of moving forward in the career. And okay, what's part B?
Or what would you change?
I definitely, we're working towards that, right?
We're getting there.
We are changing the makeup of this industry. And listen, I think that we're doing a great job. It's a slow and steady progress. And I think just seeing progress makes me even more motivated to continue to do what I do. But yeah, that is the one thing I would change. I would absolutely change the I would want more diversity within our industry.
I agree. I also want to highlight the community aspect of it, because I do feel like this industry has always been so welcoming, not just of me, but how I want to take my career. And, people are always in your corner rooting for you and helping you get to whatever next step you're trying to get to. And I know a couple weeks ago, you were at an event with my husband, and I had FOMO. Because everybody was there.
Yeah.
Anyways, community. Yes.
1000%. I mean, it's so true, right? Because you wouldn't have FOMO if you didn't truly like the people that were there.
And not only that, I love sitting in our sessions too. Like, I love seeing what my peers are thinking about and working on. And like, that to me is exciting. Yeah. So I'm going to cry. This is weird.
We did miss you though.
You're amazing, Gina. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. You are too.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or any inspiration that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I would say, if somebody puts their hand out to welcome you, don't be afraid to accept it. Because I do know some women who are very skeptical of others. They don't know if people are being authentic. And I think, unfortunately, in this world, we've found cynicism to be necessary when we're approaching especially new people and new things. And I think that, Erica, to your point, the community and the FOMO, we do have a group of really authentic people in this industry. And I would hate to feel like somebody thinks that by being kind, being nice, being welcoming, you're being inauthentic. If somebody puts out their hand, I would absolutely encourage you to put yours out too and accept that welcome.
That's a great parting thought. So thank you, Gina, for being with us today. Where can people find you?
Totally all over the social, LinkedIn, of course, Gina Sansivero, at Gina Sans on X, Twitter. If you want to see food and dogs, find me on Instagram, Gina Sansivero.
Great feed.
Yeah, thank you. My dog's name is Tito.
I especially love the annual tomato canning.
I do too. The cleanup, not so much. So that's where I'm at. And of course, at AtlasIED.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Anyone listening, you can find me at charbet.com or at the Erica Carroll in all of the social places. Thank you again. And to all of our listeners, if you're listening to this as audio only, be sure to check us out on YouTube, and vice versa. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to check us anywhere you get your podcasts, along with any other AVNation show, like our friends over at EdTech on AVNation.tv.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.